Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
Being that I am a former correctional officer, I still like to read news stories about things that go on in jails and prisons.
I imagine working there kind of puts a mild curiosity for a period of time after you work there, maybe.
I don't know if there will ever be a point in my life till the end here where I don't care what's going on in local jails and prisons, to some extent.
It's probably similar to what I do. Where I do for a living, you're more exposed to every time you drive, so I'll probably never, ever stop thinking about it or evaluating someone else's work with it or anything. So
crying when you see a down road sign as you drive by, like, oh, think of the poor guy that's got to come fix that now in the rain.
Well, if it's in the area I work, it's dollar signs. Cha-ching! I'm getting overtime.
Oh, good for you.
Okay, so here's this article from the liberal bleeding cunt rag known as the Star Tribune. It's a story about solitary confinement, and I think I need to start doing a better job of defining the things I bitch about for the uninitiated. So solitary confinement would be a punishment while you're in jail. And someone would say, well, you're already in jail. Isn't that a punishment? Nope. Well, if you're in prison or jail, county-level jails will have a few segregation cells. Most prisons in this state have segregation wards, like whole fucking pods with rooms upon rooms of motherfuckers that are stuck to themselves for acting up.
Oh, yeah.
So if you break the law and you get convicted of a crime, you go to prison. Simple enough to grasp onto. If you go to prison and you can't fucking figure out how to follow rules there, they send you to segregation.
Also known as, more appropriately, as solitary confinement. Because when you say segregation, it sounds kind of racial.
Yeah. So when you're in solitary, or the shoe, or the hole, as they call it, you're in a room by yourself. And there's not a lot of stimulation, and they control the lights. And they don't give you, like, books and colored pencils to draw with.
Sounds to me like that's how prison's supposed to be. Why isn't all the prisons like this?
Well, that's the thing, is it's supposed to punish you for being a piece of shit. So prison's supposed to make you not want to commit more crimes. So there's everything about solitary that works. It separates you from the rest of the population if you're risk of violence or you're a raper.
How you fellas doing?
You know, they might put you on administrative seg sometimes if they're afraid that you're a snitch and you're going to get murdered or raped to death if you're a child molester.
Well, snitches get stitches.
It's a thing. That's true. That's the mindset. Anyway, so segregation, you fuck up in prison and you go to the hole.
So there's prison inside of a prison.
Yep. And it could be a few days. It could be weeks. There are people that have been in seg for months and years, and basically it's like a form of sensory deprivation that will fuck you up because you get little to no human contact at all.
Well, like I said, that's the way prison should be. It shouldn't be a social club.
True. So anyways, the Star Tribune took out its tampon long enough to write a story that's about Minnesota is sending black and Native American prisoners to solitary confinement at higher rates than whites. So last year, blacks and natives in prison went to solitary at a disproportionately higher rate than whites. I'd just like to point out that in the public, blacks commit crime at a rate disproportionate to their percentage of the population. So this is a reoccurring theme. They don't know how to follow the rules in public, and I'm sorry for generalizing about all blacks, but the blacks that commit crimes, they don't go to prison and become model fucking citizens most of the time.
No. This is the stuff that we've discussed before in previous episodes.
Yeah. So I guess the Department of Corrections in Minnesota, they put together some report to look at how often blacks and natives end up in solitary confinement. And I'm just going to preface this with Asians, not very much. They behave themselves in prison because I read deeper. There are things in the report that I have concerns about, said Paul Schnell, who took over as Commissioner of Corrections last year and has been an advocate for reforms. We still have some people who are in segregation for a long time, probably because they fucking deserve to be there, dickhead. Schnell said he plans to speak with prison staff in charge of discipline and investigate whether racial profiling or a deeper systemic problem may be driving the racial disparities. I think we have an obligation to look at those things, he said.
Bullshit!
Wow. Would you please take the liberal, bleeding heart agenda's dick out of your mouth? Okay, so nearly 60% of people sent to solitary confinement in Minnesota last year were black or Native American. Minorities were sent to solitary confinement at a higher rate than white prisoners.
Wait till you hear these numbers.
Blacks make up 40% of the state general prison population, 45% of the solitary confinement population. Natives make up 9% of the prison population and 13% of the solitary population. Whites make up 51% of the Minnesota state prison population, and they are 40% of the solitary confinement population. So you see that, there's more whites in prison, but they go and make up almost an entirely even percentage of segregation solitary confinement inmates as blacks. 40 to 45 is not that great a disparity.
It is not. It is nearly half and half. And it's why you can't just read the headlines, people. You need to read the article, because this headline is absolute bullshit.
Well, they didn't track like Latinos. But it says not shown are Asians and others that make up only 2% of the prison population in solitary confinement. So they're clumping the yellow and brown people together. In the fiscal 2019, prison officials issued 10,751 sentences to solitary confinement. That includes about 5,800 distinct inmates, or, for context, about 60% of the total prison population of Minnesota as of last July. The majority were punitive sentences, though some go for solitary for reasons such as protection from fellow inmates, like I stated. So you talk about those percentages. 45% of those admitted for solitary were black, 13% native, 40% white. Okay, so I want you to think about if we were Florida, Maryland, Tennessee, Missouri, California, very black places. The Carolinas, Georgia.
Is Florida primarily black?
You would think so if you looked at their prison population.
Well, that just goes with the whole, the percentage of crime that they commit.
So my point there is, if you look at the percentage of a prison population going to solitary confinement as a punishment in a state that has more people of color in it, then this study would have to be weighed next to it, you would think, for an apples-to-apples comparison.
Yeah, I give you that one, yeah.
So it talks about 181 people of those sentenced spent longer than 3 months in isolation. 69 of them served longer than 6 months, and 20 served longer than a year. You have to be a real piece of shit to be stuck in segregation for a year.
Yeah, and those are the kind of people that I would argue it's worth just maybe using a bullet and ending it.
Yeah, you probably should euthanize them. They're animals, not people. 54 people were transferred from solitary straight to the mental health unit at the maximum security prison in Oak Park Heights. That's the Supermax that's underground. It's the only Supermax in the state.
And it's underground?
It's mostly underground. So the most common infractions leading to solitary were disorderly conduct, fighting, abuse/harassment, and disobeying a direct order.
Just like high schoolers.
Right. It says the punishment of solitary confinement has come under scrutiny in Minnesota in recent years as a growing body of research shows it can take an irreversible toll on mental health and make it more difficult for a person to rehabilitate and transition back into society. One damning assessment of isolation came in 2011 when a special investigator for the United Nations denounced it as a degrading punishment, declaring that any stay in excess of 15 days can amount to torture.
Well, it's the United Nations. Well, fuck them.
Yeah. Last year, 2,753 sentences to solitary lasted 16 days or longer, according to this new report. So let's just skip past all the fucking obvious PC overtones of this article. If you are sentenced to solitary, it's not because you're black. It's because you are breaking rules and you're possibly a danger to others and yourself.
Yep.
If you're white, same thing. If you're Asian, Latino, Native, if you're some other thing they didn't account for. Color bears no weight upon their decision to segregate you as a punishment for behavior.
No, I've watched enough prison shows, like documentaries, to know that they don't, like you said, they don't take race into consideration. And so, you beat up an officer and then you threw food on another one. Well, you're going to go into solitary confinement, no matter what color you are.
Well, you look at these people that read this article, are like, oh my God, we need to do more to protect these black inmates. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody's like, uh-oh, you broke the rules by black standards. You broke the rules by native standards. I guess you should only broke the rules by white standards or you'd still be in Gen Pop right now. That's not how it fucking works.
Anybody's running around out there right now saying, oh my gosh, we're just racist in prison, or they're putting blacks and stuff in more often, is because the Nimrod read just the headline. The headline's completely misleading to what the article actually shows.
If we as a society have deemed that prison is a fit punishment for those that do not follow the rules and break the laws and injure others or damage other people's property, then why are we getting so broke up about what happens? No one's being abused. This isn't a story about, oh, so many black inmates are getting beat by the guards. That shit doesn't happen anymore. That whole Shawshank Redemption style of where a guard comes in with a billy club and caves your goddamn skull in.
The good old days.
Yeah, they don't do that shit anymore because there's cameras everywhere, and we treat our prisoners more humane than a number of countries.
I would say even better than we treat some of our high schools and middle schoolers.
Well, it's just ridiculous that how much more can you put the kid gloves on to handle people that you have deemed unfit to be out in society? Do you really need to sit there and go, well, we should probably be nicer to them? That's the approach of my former boss's boss. That if you treat people good, they'll become good people.
No, they take advantage of you.
Exactly, because when you're dealing with convicts, most frequently you're dealing with irrational thinkers, people that do not subscribe to the same societal norms as everyone else. They just don't give a shit. There's literally entire segments of the population that would rape, steal, and murder all the time if they could get away with it.
Definitely.
And you think that if you fucking give them a book to read and an apple and tell them they're a good boy, that magically it's going to flip a switch in their head? No, they're broken. Just like if a dog gets bitey, you put him to sleep because they're a dangerous animal. The same principle should apply to people that continually commit acts of violence against other members of society.
If only there was an island we can drop them off at and just leave them there.
Do you know what's cheaper than an island? A mass grave.
Yeah, but...
Let that sink in.
But this way you're giving them a chance.
Nah, fuck that shit. You should watch the old 90s Ray Liotta movie, No Escape. It takes place...
Yep, I love that movie.
It takes place on a prison island.
It's actually a peninsula.
Is it? Oh, for fuck's sakes. He's splitting hairs with me, for God's sakes.
No, that's a great movie. And you got two factions. You got the faction that wanted to do good, serve their time, and... Well, once you were there, you were kind of there. They never came and took you out. But then you had the other faction of the criminals that were just bloodthirsty, didn't care, dog eats dog style of life.
That's what prison is anyway. You've got people that have fucked up, realize they fucked up, want to serve their time, get out there, and make it up to everybody they let down and prove that they're worthwhile and can contribute again. And then you get the other half when the pendulum swings back. They're just like, I don't give a shit. As soon as I get out of here, I'm doing so much dirt. They fucking just sit there and pop boner after boner thinking about all the fucked up shit they're going to do when they get out. All the drugs they're going to do. They're going to beat their fucking wife for helping the cops convict them. They're just going to go out and make a bunch of more stupid babies that the state has to pay for.
It's actually incredible how many of them actually do that. All that stuff.
Oh, I had one guy that was getting out one night at the jail. He's like, well, I don't know what you got planned for you get off of your shift, but when I go home, I'm going to go make a baby. And I wanted to be like, do you want to think about that?
No, because the government made it so that he doesn't have to.
He's like, yeah, me and my wife, we really like kids.
Well, you're a shitty person. Quit spreading it around.
Now, I really like naps, but that doesn't mean that I constantly take them and shirk my responsibilities, because then I couldn't provide for my family. Just like if you make a bunch of extra kids just because you like kids, you're just making more mouths for people to feed if you don't work and you fucking are in and out of facilities.
Nah, what the hell? They'll grow up. They'll be fine. Government will take care of them.
Yeah, well, I liked that whenever there's an article on the Star Tribune like this, I like to go immediately to the comments section to watch the fucking sane, pragmatic people eat the liberal bleeding heart dildos alive.
Can we go there?
I actually took the liberty of taking out some of my favorites, and this was weeks ago, by the way. Who knows how many fucking comments are on this story now? Anyway, so here's some comments from readers. Articles like this do a disservice to what could be racial bias in our prison system. This data supports nothing in the way of a conclusion without additional information on the types of infractions by race leading to solitary confinement. Perhaps the paper should employ more people with a statistical analysis background. Otherwise, it's easy for people to assume the writer is pushing an agenda versus what could be a rational conversation.
Hammer, meet the nailhead.
Yeah. Given the disparities in the general population reported here, I'd like to see an analysis that factors in the nature of the crimes which led to imprisonment and the reported reasons for sending inmates to solitary confinement. This might also include the number who have been sent to solitary on more than one occasion. These might give us some additional insight. No shit. If the actual offenses committed by blacks and natives turn out to be equal to the rate they're sent to solitary, this is a good correctional discipline. Not anything else. The rate they're sent relative to the general population has no meaning except to people that want an excuse to throw a fit. The next person, this is great. Every prisoner should be in solitary. Not one single prisoner-to-prisoner contact. No beatings, no stabbings, no rapes, no new criminal friends, no new criminal skills, no drug trade, and shorter sentences.
That sounded like me.
Kinda. You'll notice I emboldened the ones I like the best.
Yeah, I read ahead on that one.
It's simple. Go to school. Get a job. Get married. Stay married. Go to church.
Fuck you!
Point lost. Your God has nothing to do with these people. Because, as you may have noticed, whoever wrote that, there's a number of priests that can't keep their dicks out of little boys' mouths.
Bing bong, hello!
Which is a crime. So, there goes your go-to-church theory. Maybe they should have gotten married. Should have been Lutheran. Yeah, I like this one. Father Flanagan was wrong. There are bad boys, and they should be dealt with accordingly to protect society in general. If a person commits a crime against the laws of society, he or she should be prepared to, quote, do the time. If the offender does the time according to the rules of the prison, a, quote, early out is usually rewarded. If rules are broken, the offender is removed from general population and segregated to protect guards and fellow prisoners. Correct. Not unlike being removed from society on the outside. Double correct. The more incorrigible the person, the longer the segregation from those doing their time peacefully. Exactly. Not a difficult concept unless one wishes to make it a problem. Like the people that put together that fucking study are doing. Perhaps the reason we get to the point of isolation in the first place is because of a complete lack of consequences at the first signs of troubling criminal behavior. A quick look at St. Paul's most recent murder suspect is a great illustration of a very common theme in sentencing. His criminal history includes convictions for second-degree assault in 2005, prohibited person in possession of a firearm in 2005, first-degree aggravated robbery in 2008, and first-degree aggravated robbery in 2013.
Hey, at least he spaced them out.
Yeah, he's awaiting sentencing in a domestic assault by strangulation case.
Roadhouse.
Most good hardworking people know how lenient our judicial system is with violent offenders. This is not a rarity at all. There's no conceivable justification for that person to be out of prison, and yet it happens every single day.
I like the last one.
We have lots of criminals because so many young males are raised without fathers. Ding, 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 ding.
How many more of these are there?
We should trust our guards. They might know more than we know.
Yep.
No fucking shit. I beg to differ. Some criminals are not human beings in the sense that they possess any common sense, willingness to employ reason, or internal psychological controls at all that might prevent them from destroying everyone and everything around them given a tiny sliver of opportunity. Quite a run-on sentence. Spend a day at the Supermax to get a flavor of just what they're up against. Was there a disparity when you consider the percent of infractions leading to the confinement based on race? If one group commits more infractions, it's not a disparity if more of that group are punished. No shit. Seems like we've got some people that have some very good logic and reasoning skills here.
I want to see the bleeding liberals. I want to see but we need to, this article points out. I'm not seeing any of that. I'm seeing people I agree with.
If the prison system is so racist, can someone please explain why Asians are such a small proportion of the inmate population? Are Asian criminals too smart to get caught? That, of course, is a racist statement in and of itself. Could it simply be that Asians in Minnesota commit disproportionately less crime than their percentage of population? Probably. And if that's true, is it therefore possible that other races could commit disproportionately more crime than their percent of the population? Yes. Yes, that's true. This isn't about spending time in prison. It's about solitary confinement, which has been shown over and over to have massive detrimental effects on mental health. Do you really want prisoners to become more unstable? These are replies. Massive detrimental effects also come from attacking the guards and each other. Some people are so violent they belong in solitary. That's why it was designed, to protect others from those too violent to be among other human beings. Someone says, there is a danger that the most unstable people on earth might become unstable? People who have never had anything to do with the system have no idea. It's a matter of containment of last resort of those animals who are so violent they have no internal controls at all. They cannot be placed in any lashing out proximity at all with living, breathing creatures. Did you ever see Silence of the Lambs? There are hundreds of Hannibal Lecters in our prison because we can't do anything else with them. Other people die when there is the slightest containment slip-up. Yeah, I would agree. Another person says, looks reasonable to me. We know that arrests by race are not representative of the general population mix. Selection is by behavior, not race. Thank you. Martin Luther King Jr. said, I look forward to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by their content of their character. Are these inmates not being judged by their character or actions while incarcerated? Why should their color, race, ethnicity, or anything else matter when deciding who, for the safety of other inmates and staff, is moved to a solitary confinement cell?
I guess one could argue if it really was a racist system, wouldn't all the blacks be in solitary confinement all the time?
Yes.
See?
Yes.
It's not racist.
Yeah, it's very simple. Somebody said, this is virtue signaling and social justice warrior reporting. I would agree.
Ding, 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 ding.
So there is a, quote, disparity simply because of the numbers in the report findings? Are we not even considering it a possibility that black and native inmates might just be committing proportionately more infractions that warrant solitary? Is there evidence that a white inmate and a black or Native American inmate commit the same infraction but only the latter receive solitary?
Ooh.
It's like I talked about. Oh, that's a black infraction. Yeah, you're going to the hole, boy. Which is how they would sound if Yosemite Sam worked in our prisons. Emboldened, is there any evidence that blacks were sent to solitary for things that whites would not have been sent to solitary for? I mean, I could keep reading these few more.
Some of these are pretty repetitive, yeah. But we get the general idea. It's a lot of people think this article is absolute bullshit, and it is.
Well, Minnesota is sending male prisoners to solitary at rates much higher than women. Maybe the women follow the rules better than men. I think that's the point. Maybe blacks break the rules more often, therefore get sent to solitary at a higher rate. And this last one, this is no different than school suspensions. As long as the punishment is based strictly on behavior, the percentages should not matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hate these articles come out and they're preaching, oh, we're treating minority inmates so poorly. Okay, but you can't apply a hug-a-thug mentality to all these people that are constantly starting shit. Maybe they had a life where they were disadvantaged and they didn't have anything, so they grew up poor and they had to steal to get by. And they thought, well, I'm going to go hang out with the other guys that steal to get by, and we're going to form a gang, and we're not going to go to school because it's more fun to hang out and play video games and smoke pot and fucking rob people on the MTC bus line than learn algebra. You know, okay, but still, they're not showing that they want to do better. They're breaking the rules and going to prison, and then still breaking more rules because they just can't fucking find a way to get along. I think the best way to make an impact on these people is to take, like, the toughest, most vicious inmate that causes all the problems and just, like, beat the fuck out of him with billy clubs, old school style. Just beat him to death in front of everybody in the lunchroom. And I mean, when he stops moving, don't stop swinging the sticks till there's nothing but a puddle left of what used to be a human being. And then just look up and be like, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. You would be quoting Whistler in the movie Blade, but it would apply.
Seeing what you were talking, it was just like, just pull him out of the courtyard and like, this guy keeps getting sent to solitary confinement. He can't follow the fucking rules. Can't act like decent behavior. Bam!
Yeah.
There's plenty more where that came from.
Intimidation is a great motivator. These people aren't scared of the consequences. No wonder they keep fucking up and laughing about it.
They go to jail. They got free meals. They got buddies that do the same shit they do and swapping war stories, quote unquote. I mean, it's not a fucking punishment anymore.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
I'm number one fan, Tim.
And that's the end.